I'll just do a hot take real quick. Nobody's beating Tadej Pogacar in next year's Tour de France. It might be closer. It might not be as decisive after the first few days. But this course suits him perfectly, especially, like you said, without the long time trial miles that might favor Remco Evenepoel.
He's not just in it for winning the Tour de France. He's chasing ghosts. He's out to get Eddie Merckx. I mean, he wants to get the stage win victories, break Cavendish's record. He wants it all. He's greedy now, and as he should be, because, if he wants to be the GOAT, he's got to do GOAT things.
This is my idea. Alternate. 1 year with the climb and the cobbles of Montmartre, and the next year up the Champs for the sprinters. Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Podium. In a minute, the Tour de France route has been announced for next year. They do that every year in October. I'm Bob Roll, joined by Tejay Van Garderen. Now, Tejay, in my era, there was no such thing as a Tour routes announcement. They kept that secret amongst themselves while they negotiated extorting money out of the towns across France and Western Europe. Before we even got there, we had no idea what to expect one day from the next. So that might have been a personal problem within the team. We were first starting out, getting to know the sport, but there was none of the hoopla that we see nowadays. And that started maybe 20 years ago, where the route announcement is a big deal for the next year's Tour de France. In your era, what was it like, TJ?
I don't know. I don't really think that you would train any differently once the route gets announced, but it was a big deal. I did actually attend one Tour de France presentation. That was the year after I won the Best Young Rider jersey. So it was announcing the 2013 route. And I got to say, it was really confusing. They had all these flashing lights, and it was over in like 4 minutes. And they just had this line that went through this holographic map. And then afterwards, all these reporters shoved microphones in your faces like, so what do you think of the route? And I was like, I really don't. I know actually less than what I did before I even came here. So I don't know. I think it's getting to study the route online. I think it's definitely a cool route that they came up with, but it's not going to change the way the riders train, and it's also not going to change the winner. The Tour de France is always going to be the Tour de France. It's the most grueling. The best rider is always going to win.
It seemed like last year they tried to keep at least some suspense going into the second week of racing, with the northwestern part of the country being used and not big mountains up there. This year, a very different proposition, starting in Spain. Let's get into stage number 3 in a moment, but let's start with the team time trial. An interesting format that we've seen the last 3 years, if I remember correctly, in Paris-Nice, whereby each rider is given their time at the finish line. Now, that only makes a difference if there's a climb at the end. And for the team time trial, there's 2 climbs before the finish line. It's short, but each guy on the team will get their own time. It seems like the advantage, considering the last 2 climbs, very punchy, shorter, steeper, really suit Tadej Pogacar. But what do you think about the format and the team time trial for stage number 1 in this year's Tour de France in Spain?
To be honest, I love it. I mean, we all know that cycling is a team sport, but it's kind of an individual sport masquerading as a team sport. So the team time trial, you need a strong team. However, you never want the team to hold back the best rider. So if it's advantageous for the best rider to hit out solo and go it on its own and make up some more ground, I'd say don't hold him back. You don't have to wait for your 4th or 5th best rider. You just go and get your best time. So I actually think this is a super exciting way to run the team time trial. I know that it's gotten some criticism, but I'm all for it. I love it. I know that you know me, Bobby. I'm a bit of a conservative. I love the tradition of things, but this is one of the rule changes that I'm actually you know what, I'm in favor of.
And you guys had a pretty successful team time trial in your career in the Tour de France, if I remember correctly, TJ.
Oh man, when I was on BMC, if there were there was never a team time trial that we didn't go to say we want to just dominate this thing. Actually, the very first stage of the very first Grand Tour I ever did was 2010 Vuelta a España with HTC, and we won it, and it was actually done at night, and it was lit up by street lights, and Mark Cavendish crossed the line first, but it was like basically the very first stage of the very first Grand Tour I did was a victory, and like it was more or less all downhill from there. But it was the coolest experience, and yeah, the team time trials I've done in my career, man, I was on some very, very powerhouse squads, and so I love that event. I wish that like I've actually gotten to direct a few team time trials for EF Education Easy Post, and it is the funnest thing. I mean, when you see like a well-oiled squad just chopping off, going back and forth, trading pulls, it is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Well, let's hope that the Tour de France doesn't revisit what happened in the Vuelta a couple of years ago in Barcelona when it was raining and the last 3 or 4 teams had to start almost in the dark. A bit of a disaster. I'm sure the Tour will have better timing than that particular
Yeah,
stage.
I remember Remco kicking a few water bottles on that day as well.
Remco, the defending champ, if I remember, was not pleased. But anyway, be that as it may, first 2.5 stages in Spain, and then by stage 3 already we're into the mountains of the Pyrenees. How do you think that'll change things in this year's Tour?
Yeah, it's interesting. Those climbs, we do them a lot in the Vuelta Catalunya. They go over like Tosas, which is not the steepest climb. I don't know. I'm remembering back when the Tour de France started in Nice. It was, I think, the last Tour de France I ever raced, and we went over some massive, massive coals, but it actually finished in not such a selective group. So I'm actually wondering if the GC favorites are going to think like, you know what, this is maybe a little too early to make a move. We don't actually want the jersey yet. It's going to be a big burden to try to defend this jersey from stage 3 all the way to the end. Maybe they take it early and give it away, or maybe they just let the breakaway go, or maybe it's just this GC stalemate where everyone's too afraid to move because they're like, you know what, it's only stage 3. We got 17 more of these things to go.
And then into the Pyrenees, and only one big day in the mountains in the Pyrenees, much different from last year when we had a uphill time trial to Périgueux and Hautacam. And even by Hautacam, it looked like Tadej Pogacar, all he had to do was sit on the wheels for the rest of the Tour de France. Maybe this year, a little bit less decisive in the Pyrenees, considering the rest of the Tour de France.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I look forward, I think, okay, there's only one individual time trial, only 22 kilometers, but when they get into the Vosges, I think that's going to be very selective. And then obviously the final week is going to be very selective. But you know what? Knowing Tadej Pogacar, he's going to attack at any chance he sees. So maybe it's going to be one of those cases like we saw a couple of years ago. They went, there was a massive mountain stage on stage 3, like we were going to see this year. And Tadej, he had his whole team light it up into a headwind, descent finish, and put a minute into Jonas Vingegaard. So maybe he's just going to try to, stamp his authority on the race early.
Well, that wouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Let's hope that by stage 3, after the team time trial on stage 1 and the day in the hills in stage 3, that it's not a foregone conclusion all the way to Paris. Let's get into the second week a little bit. Now, the sprinters always complain that there's not enough sprint stages. It seems like on paper there's 7. For me, that's maybe 4 too many. Is the day of the sprinter in the Tour de France, maybe they get a couple of stages, but for me, the more exciting stages are more dynamic, have a lot more terrain, and they're not a procession all the way to the finish line in a big bunch gallop, which are thrilling. They're exciting. The last 5Ks is crazy, but come on. I mean, it's modern cycling. I think 7 stages for the sprinters is way too many for me.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, I think what we're seeing is like you have to be a stronger sprinter. There's less of these like super flat stages where it's just going to be a pure bunch sprint where it's just a 2-man breakaway, they chase it and then they get it back, and then there's a sprint in the final, which is always super exciting. But I think what we're going to see is less of a Mark Cavendish style sprint and more of a Peter Sagan style sprint, and I think that's what the fans want. But yeah, like we are going to have to endure a couple of those just like, all right, it's a little bit of a snooze fest until the final 10K. And then what you're going to see when the stages are that easy, obviously, is everyone thinks they're a sprinter. They see the line. and you're going to see a lot of crashes. Some people like to see that. I hate to see that. I don't know about you, Bobby, but like that's the
No,
worst
it's
part of
horrible.
cycling for me.
It's
So,
terrible.
and when you make the race harder and more selective, you're going to see a safer race, and you're going to see,
Yeah.
you can still see a like a Biniam Girmay or a Peter Sagan or like one of those stronger sprinters kind of win, but you got to make the race just a little bit more dynamic throughout the day in order to get the race thinned out a little bit more, and you can still get the fast men, their chance to shine.
Well, that will bring us into the third week, and what I think is maybe the most brilliant course design in a long time, the most iconic climb in all of cycling. Alpe d'Huez, beyond category, the 21 switchbacks on the front side. This year, a little bit different. The backside will be used, the Col de Saren, for the second day to finish in Alpe d'Huez. That's the highlight of the entire tour coming just stages 19 and 20, but I am absolutely thrilled. I can't wait to get to Alpe d'Huez again this year. It's been a couple of years. I believe it was Tom Cock that won the last time the Tour de France visited. That's a couple of years ago now. But I am absolutely thrilled to see what's going to happen on 2 days up to Alpe d'Huez. What a coup by Christian Prudhomme. So hats off to ASO, the organizers, for giving us two chances on Alpe d'Huez.
100%. I am super thrilled to see that. When I heard that they were going to do a double ascent of Alpe d'Huez, I had flashbacks of myself in 2013 on probably
I
was just
remember
one
that
of the.
very well, TJ.
Yeah, I remember it all too well. It's a day I wish I could forget, but it was a. I'm glad that they're not doing the descent down the backside because that thing is treacherous. But if they're going to climb that side, I think that's going to be mega exciting. And we're going to get 2 days of the most iconic ski resort in the Tour de France. And I am all for it. So definitely hats off to Christian Prudhomme. That is going to be a day that we're both going to be on the edge of our seat for. Everyone's going to be on the edge of their seat for. However, I do want to ask you about one thing, Bob, and I'm a little bit biased on this. I know we have the team time trial on stage one, but there's only 22 kilometers of individual time trialing. Now, when I just watched the World Championships, I saw Remco Evenepoel put 2.5 minutes into Tadej Pogacar. So, if you wanted to have an exciting race and a more legit threat to Tadej Pogacar, why not give Remco Evenepoel what we've had in the past? I've done Tour de France's where we've had two 45-kilometer individual time trials plus a prologue, which is probably like 100 kilometers of individual time trialing. I know that it's a little bit boring to get through that. Like you have to wait for your specialist, you have to wait for the GC riders, but the GC riders have been stacking the top of the list. It's not the way it used to be where you have your Tony Martin, you have your Fabian Cancellara, and then somewhere around like the lower end of the top 20, you're going to see your GC guys come in. Our GC guys are showcased in those time trials, and I actually think that would be a way to kind of put a threat to Tadej Pogacar's dominance. What do you think about a 22 kilometers individual time trialing in this year's Tour de France?
I agree. That's not nearly enough to give us an idea of who's the best all-around cyclist in the world. Tadej's been able to hold his own in the Tour de France, like you said, at the Worlds, and it seems like Remco Evenepoel is even better than he was at the Tour de France in the time trials that we've seen in recent years. So I agree with you. Not nearly enough kilometers of time trialing. I think you're referring to 2012 when Bradley Wiggins, he had 100 Ks of time trials and put demented amounts of time into everybody except you, TJ. You were flying against the clock that year.
Yeah, I do remember that year, and it was a bit of a boring Tour de France. Now, I actually loved that because I could make up ground in the time trials, and they put a nice little pace for me on the climbs so that I could kind of just ride my way into a high overall place. And I get that that was boring for fans, but I actually think that you have to just take into account the current stock of riders and what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are and how you can create a rivalry. And I get that climbing is, sometimes more exciting, sometimes more explosive. But if you have your current crop of riders and the way that they can put damage into Tadej Pogacar and actually create an exciting race, you're going to have to just adapt to what the riders, what the current crop of riders' talents are. And I think Remco Evenepoel is going to need more of a 2012 style course to kind of challenge a Tadej Pogacar style rider.
And he is going to be on a different team. Maybe that gives him a little bit more of an advantage compared to Quick-Step Soudal. Now he'll be on the Red Bull Bora squad. So Remco Evenepoel might be a very different athlete in next year's Tour de France.
100%. And I'm actually really curious to see, because he's going to have Primoz Roglic as well as Florian Leibowitz on his team. I mean, if they can work well together, that's going to be a massive powerhouse squad. But are they going to play nice together? Like we've seen Primoz Roglic, he doesn't like to really share the spotlight. Like
yes.
And also another big question with Florian Leibowitz. We saw him do an amazing tour last year. He's an amazing talent. He's a German on a German team. But my big question is whenever I see a performance like that, the first thing that comes to mind is, can he do it again?
That's a very good question. We've seen a lot of, I wouldn't say flash in the pan, but young riders show a lot of promise and then struggle for the next few seasons. I think Thymen Arensman, a good example of that, came out of the gate flying in the Vuelta. It took him a while to find his good legs again. And do you think we'll have a situation like last year when UAE seemed to let some breakaways contest the stage wins in the big mountain stages that gave Arensman a chance to win a couple in this previous Tour de France?
I don't think that was by design, Bob. To be honest, I think they were missing João Almeida, and if they had João Almeida there, they would have steamrolled all of those breakaways, and Tadej probably would have won 8 stages of this year's Tour de France. But Tadej's only one man. As good as he is, he can't also act as pulling back all the breakaways and winning on top of that while he's got, a guy like Jonas Vingegaard on his wheel. You can't do the job of 4 men when you're just one. Maybe he can do the job of 2 or 3 because he's Tadej Pogacar. But if UAE is fully loaded, fully healthy, I think that they're going to try to win as much as possible because Tadej Pogacar, he's not just in it for winning the Tour de France. He's chasing ghosts. He's out to get Eddie Merckx. I mean, he wants to get the stage win victories, break Cavendish's record. He wants it all. He's greedy now, and as he should be, because if he wants to be the GOAT, he's got to do GOAT things.
And that brings up a great point, TJ. He's looking at number 5 that would tie him for all-time wins with Indurain, Anquetil, Eno, and Eddie Merckx. That would be quite an accomplishment. I think you'll see a very motivated Tadej Pogacar. And I'll just do a hot take real quick. Nobody's beating Tadej Pogacar in next year's Tour de France. It might be closer. It might not be as decisive after the first few days. But this course suits him perfectly, especially, like you said, without the long time trial miles that might favor Remco Evenepoel.
Yeah, no, I am agreeing with you 100% on that, Bob. A couple of years ago, I actually thought that, okay, Tadej, he's the better all-around rider, but Jonas Vingegaard is the more quintessential Grand Tour rider. And I was thinking a specialist over 3 weeks is going to be better than Tadej Pogacar. But he answered all of those questions for me this year. Because last year, remember, Jonas Vingegaard had that bad crash in the Tour de Pays Basque. And I was thinking, okay, you got to give Jonas Vingegaard a little bit of a break. He came in hobbled. He didn't have the best preparation. But once he has the solid preparation, he comes in 100% fit. I was thinking that he was actually the better 3-week rider than Tadej Pogacar. Not the better all-around rider, but the better 3-week rider. This year, it answered all of those questions for me because they both came in completely healthy, successful seasons, and Tadej just demolished him. He just walked all over him. It wasn't even close. So I was like, you know what? As much as I wanted to tip it in Jonas Vingegaard's favor and say that there is a true rivalry, the fact is, Tadej Pogacar, he has 0 rivals.
And if he's behind by a few seconds on the last day in Paris with the climb 3 times around Montmartre that we saw.
How awesome would that be to see?
How awesome would that be?
I hope for that. I pray for that. But my guess is he'll be away by 3 minutes at that point, but he'll still try to win that last stage.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you like that, having that very dynamic, competitive, dangerous and we saw Tadej rampaging on all the field. A little bit different scenario because the GC was not a factor in the last 3 laps with the cobbles. But if it were, his time gaps would have been insane over everybody else in the GC on that day.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby, you were a little bit different style of rider than me, so you probably would have loved racing that Montmartre stage. I would have hated it. I would have been stressed. I would have been like, "What is going on? Come on, give us a break!" Like, because I was kind of that, whiny, wimpy, like little frail GC guy, whereas you were one of those hard hitting headbangers. So you would have loved it. But I gotta say, watching it on TV, I was like. And thank you very much to Tadej Pogacar for making it exciting, because
Yes, absolutely.
the fact that he decided to join in the fight, I was like, all right, we got ourselves a race in Paris. But yeah, I mean, I do feel a little bit sad for the sprinters. Like you just alluded to, that we're kind of shifting away from that pure sprinter mentality, and we're going more towards the exciting panache and the attacking. But what we also saw last year in the Tour was a lot of the best guys. They were so tired. They were on their hands and knees. And even on the mountain stages, which should have been exciting, we were kind of seeing them just kind of make their way to the finish and just.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So at a certain point, something's got to give. And you have to give these guys not just the rest days, like the physical rest days, which the 2 they're going to get, but you're going to have to give them a little bit easier stages. And the Paris stage, it was more of a procession. It was more of a parade, and it was more of like, let's get the sprinters another chance. But guess what? We can stick in their slipstream and just kind of get to the finish safely, hopefully.
Yeah.
And obviously those cobblestones on the Champs-Élysées, they're definitely going to open up some of those saddle sores that have been brewing for the last 3 weeks. But from the booth, I love it. But I feel so bad for the riders having to do that, man.
This is my idea. Alternate 1 year with the climb and the cobbles of Montmartre, and the next year up the Champs for the sprinters. Just what?
That's a good one. Yeah, that's it. Or have 2 days in Paris. 2 days in Paris. We do one Montmartre stage and one.
That's even better. I'm not sure.
Party
sure
in Paris, Bobby. Party in Paris.
Yeah. I might not be on time for the second day in Paris. Might be a little bit late that morning. Well, anyways, what's up for you? You can only imagine, right? What are you doing the rest of the winter, TJ? You going to be in Spain or traveling at all? You guys have some training camps, I would imagine.
Yeah, we have a training camp in Girona in November, so I'm hanging out here in Mallorca until then. So I'm actually going to try to get on the bike a little bit, get a little bit of fitness back. You know what? I actually have this bet going with Nielsen Paulus. You remember when he started running during the Maryland race? So he thought that he could beat my time in a 10-kilometer race. So he bought these carbon shoes, and he did this like full gas 10 kilometers on the Promenade des Anglais there in Nice. And my previous best 10K that I ever run was 36:30. And I was like, you're not going to beat that. Look, I understand what an athlete you are, but you're not a runner. Like, I've been a bit more habituated to running. So I get that if you could train more, that you would beat that, but I don't think you can beat it just coming off the bike, just coming off of the Giro de Lombardy. Well, he went and bought these carbon sole shoes off the couch, ran a 10K in 34 minutes and 14 seconds. So he took 2 minutes and 16 seconds off of my best 10K. Wow. Now, I have until training camp to try to better his time. Otherwise, I lose this bet. The bet is that if I can't beat his time, he's having another baby. He's expecting another child. So I said, I'll pay for a babysitter in a hotel for you and your wife to spend the night on your own without kids, so you can like have some alone time with your wife. If I win the bet, you have to fly me out to Houston, and we go to a shooting range and we shoot some guns. So that's the bet. And I'm quite sure, Bobby, that I'm going to lose this bet.
I'll tell you this. In my day, we didn't.
That's what I'm doing the next 3 weeks before training camp.
You're going to be training. All right. Jeez.
I'm going to be training.
A lot of training camps nowadays, though. You would have all the way until the start of the season to run another 10K. We didn't see or talk to each other until the first race of the year, which I'm not sure if like you're on call basically 365 days out of the year for cyclists nowadays, it seems like to me.
It does seem like that. I mean, but the plus side is we get all of December free, and unless you're doing Tour Down Under, you get pretty much January free. Um, the reasoning for the November training camp was that in December we'd have the guys doing Tour Down Under, and it was kind of like this. The riders wanted to be social, they wanted to party a little bit, but the
Yeah.
season was a little bit too close around the corner. We were also flying in during cold and flu season, and everyone would just kind of get sick. So we're like, let's back that up until November. The riders, they're going to be on their bike, but it's also fun to hang out with the riders in November because they get to get a little loose. You know, they're going to go out on the town. They're going to hang out at the bar, and you get to kind of see them in a different light. So I kind of like this format where we do it in November. Your holidays are uninterrupted. The riders get to focus on their season, and then it's almost like the season gets extended a little longer, but then you don't get this interruption in the middle of the off season. So I'm kind of for this format.
All righty. Well, one last question, TJ. Your in-laws, if I'm not mistaken, live in Aspen, Colorado. I'm going to be there for some skiing. Might I get a chance to see you this off season and do some skiing in Aspen?
Absolutely. When are you going to be there? I'll definitely make a trip up to Aspen for that.
You tell me when you're there, and I will rock up. Absolutely. You just tell me when.
Sounds good. I mean, one last question for you, Bobby. Do you think you can keep up with me on the two planks?
I mean, I do have the bulk, I'm pretty sure. So if it's not too twisty, I'm pretty sure. If there's none of this, you know how I know you what these skiers like, you like this, I like this.
I don't know. I think I'm just talking smack right now, Bobby. I know that you've grown up in Durango doing all the skiing. I grew up in Montana, so I have a lot of pride in the Montana ski. Like Bridger Bowl was my mountain growing up, but throughout my cycling years, I kind of tried to not ski as much. So every time I get on skis, I'm like just as good as I used to be. So I'm like a pretty good 15-year-old skier because that's around the point that I started focusing more on cycling, got a little scared to injure myself. But if you are up in Aspen, I will 100%. I'll 100% go skiing with you, Bobby.
All right, that sounds good. But no hurting each other. Maybe at the bars afterwards. No, no trips to the ER. That's off the table.
Yeah, we have to make sure that we are at least healthy enough after the day of skiing to get a couple of beers at Cloud9 afterwards.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, I am absolutely thrilled at this coming year's Tour de France race route. As we said, the 2 trips up to Alpe d'Huez are going to be fantastic, but the rest of it looks very dynamic, very competitive. Lots of chances for smaller teams to get riders in the breakaway and go for stage wins. The sprinters will have their days, but I love this race route for next year's Tour de France. I think it's better than the one we just saw. Be much more competitive throughout, and watch for Tadej Pogačar to be rampaging all over France again in July. I'm pretty stoked.
I'm stoked as well, Bobby.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, TJ. Good luck with your training against 34. That's flying into 10K. You might be.
I couldn't believe it, man.
That's awesome.
I could not believe that Nielsen Palace could just like off the couch, no running training. I know that he's the athlete that he is, but I was like, I wasn't expecting that. So I bit off more than I could chew there, but.
All right. Well, thanks a million, TJ. Good luck, and I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you in Aspen.
Good to see you, Bobby.
You too. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Beyond the Podium.
For all your cycling content year-round, subscribe to NBC Sports YouTube page. We got it all.